Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the August 7th meeting of the Parks and Rec Commission. Will the staff secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Abu Markia,
Here.
Commissioner Short,
Here.
Commissioner Esparza,
Here.
Commissioner Bridge,
Here.
Commissioner Pollock-Cushing,
Here.
Commissioner Suchek,
Here.
Commissioner Borowiak,
Here.
Commissioner Alexander.
Here.
Commissioner Suchek, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, before we get into the business, we had a wonderful park dedication on Saturday at Royer Park, and our youth commissioner wrote a beautiful poem for the new park opening that, if he was willing to, I would love for you to go to the podium and present it to everybody that wasn't lucky enough to see it in person on Saturday.
Of course.
Up for it? Okay.
So I just wanted to preface by saying that this is a poem I wrote in honor of the new play structure at Royer Park. Since I grew up in Roseville, I understand the value of parks for the community, and seeing this new play structure for the new generation of youth in Roseville, I just wanted to highlight how important that was. So this poem's titled Hands of Royer Park. Amidst this sea of green, flooded by the frenzy of footfall, beyond the pavement that hems the mulch, the gold nuggets wallowing in the sun's warm palm, a boy stands before the climbing wall that touches the blanket of sky above the clouds. His cheeks are flexed ear to ear as the breeze hoists the hairs on his head like flags with his same eagerness. This story has already been told in the fresh creases of his palms, which now grip the motley of rocks on the wall. With each ascent, a chromatic tale is etched on his stubby fingers, first red, next yellow, then blue, until his hands are a painted canvas, a portrait of the phoenix living within. A laurel wreath borne by the zephyr lands gently on his head as he reaches the peak. He can now see the frisbees and soccer balls waltzing with melodies of banter and laughter, a chorus of camaraderie. The heart of this community beats in the hues of his hands, a souvenir he keeps wherever he stands. Thank you.
No, I think I'd like to point out he did that without any notes.
I know.
I know. That was great. Thank you for sharing that again. Okay, so we will now open up the public comment period. Will the secretary read the procedures for addressing the commission tonight?
Speakers have 3 minutes under public comment to speak on issues that are not listed on the agenda and are within the city's jurisdiction. The Brown Act does not permit any action or discussion on items not listed on the agenda.
Do any members of our large audience have anything they'd like to address the commission about tonight? Okay. Closed public comment. And next, we will move on to the approval of minutes from the June 5th meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from June 5th meeting?
I'll second.
Wait, I'm listed in both present and absent.
So we had to make a note for your arrival time, so that was why it's in there. Because the minutes were, you weren't here for the minutes, but then you were here for right after the minutes. It
It
was,
says you came at 6:03
So
somewhere in
it's listed in both?
yeah, so it'll,
Right
yeah.
at 6:03.
And as a confirmation, since I was absent, I abstained from this vote, correct? Correct. Yeah, okay.
We should take a vote on the approval of the
Yeah,
minutes.
okay, yes. Do we have a motion to approve?
Yeah, we did
Yeah,
the
I mean,
motion
no,
and
I
second.
mean, everybody.
So,
Like, meaning
All in
to take a
favor?
vote,
Yes,
yeah.
Sorry. No, it's been a while. We didn't have a meeting in a long time. Okay. Then next, we're going to move on to the request.
We still
Have to
Oh,
take the
man,
vote.
Sorry.
say all in favor.
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
So we have to.
And any
indicate-
opposed?
Yeah, thank you.
And abstentions.
And
And
any-
one absent.
one abstention.
Okay, one abstention. Okay, with that, now we'll move on to the presentations and agenda item 6.1. It's an information-only item, adult sports overview given by Chris Peltzman.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. I say adult sports, us, because we don't get here very often. I think it's been a couple of years. Wanted to start out by reading our purpose statement because this drives everything we do, and that is to be the leader in providing adult sports leagues, exceptional fields and facilities, and innovative adult recreational programs while promoting fitness and a healthy lifestyle. So what do? We offer lots of sports. Our primary one that we do that has the most involvement that you'll see a little bit later is softball. We also offer basketball, 5-on-5 basketball, soccer, flag football, and volleyball. And then we do offer one drop-in program, which is co-ed soccer on Wednesday nights. We conduct these sports, most all the indoor sports are conducted at the Mahaney Fitness Center and also at the intermediate schools in the Roseville City School District. When we go outside for things like adult flag football and soccer, we do things at Maidu Regional Park, Mahaney Park, as well as Wood Creek High School. We'll do our soccer leagues over there as well. Jumping along, you'll see we wanted to show you some of the numbers, and we wanted to make sure we injected the COVID year in there. And by looking at the numbers, you'll see where we were at before COVID hit. Came out of it, everything kind of dipped a little as everyone was a little cautious and nervous still to kind of get back involved. The one that stands out the most is the NA on volleyball, and that is because the school district really kept their facilities locked tight for quite a while after most of us kind of resumed normal functions after COVID. So we didn't really have much, and we couldn't get in, so we couldn't run volleyball. But basketball is ran out of their sites as well, but we still had the Mahaney Fitness Center, so that was able to resume in 2021, as you can see, but nothing for volleyball. And the trend you'll see as 22-23 advances, the numbers start growing again. So people are now kind of fully back involved in playing, and hopefully try to get back to those 2019 numbers. The one that is huge, if you can't see there, is volleyball. I don't know why that sport just skyrocketed all of a sudden, but a lot of people want to play volleyball, which is great. So everything's trending back up. Soccer, the only reason that one's a little low is because the co-ed soccer is kind of a little fickle. It runs, it doesn't run, so forth. So below that, you can see the number of participants. And again, prior to COVID, higher than as we're trying to return to those numbers again. But they came back in 21-22. It's growing again, 22-23. Expect that trend to continue as we keep going into the next year. Challenges. I'm not going to say anything you probably haven't heard from a bunch of my colleagues over a bunch of these meetings. Staffing is still an issue. Trying to find staff that want to work. The help wanted signs are in every business still around town, and it's no different for us. So that's still a challenge we're trying to address. Facilities is another one. Just people want more and more, and we're all fighting sort of for field space and gym space with the schools or just with our own Roseville, Youth Sports Coalition. All the kids' sports are growing, so they need more space on the fields as well. So we just need more facilities. And then one of our biggest challenges is officials. if you have kids that play in youth sports, you might have heard about this, but it's not any less severe at the adult level, and probably even more so. People do not want to officiate sports. They don't want the grief and the headaches that come with it. And so one of the ways we've had to challenge or combat that is increase the wages just to attract people to officiate sports. And so that drives our league fees up. But that's just what the cost of doing business and play adult sports in 2023. So our opportunities is technology. One of the things that we're trying to advance is getting to be able to do all of our league rosters, which is always a huge thing. We've got to have everyone sign the waivers, sign the rosters. We're finally at the point where we can do it online. So that'll be great. So we don't have to have a million pieces of paper everywhere. People can sign it from their office during the day, from home, wherever. They don't need to be on site to do it necessarily, and staff will have access to those rosters. And then obviously we're building the courts at Gibson Park. I think we all know pickleball is a huge booming sport right now, and we'd like to jump in on that as well. Try to run some leagues, tournaments, and such for adults as soon as those courts are built and ready to go. So. Some of our successes, as I pointed out earlier, volleyball. It's huge. Everybody wants to play volleyball, which is great. They don't fight. I like that sport. Soccer continues to do well. You have a couple of good World Cups. That always drives numbers up. People want to play more. Softball has always been our driver. It continues to be. Even though our numbers are a little bit down, and they have been for the last several years, even prior to COVID, we're still the largest provider of adult softball in the entire Sacramento region. So while our numbers are down, everyone's are down, but we're still the biggest in the entire region. And then drop-in soccer we do on Wednesday nights. We sell that out within 10 minutes of putting the wristbands on sale every single Wednesday. It's packed. Another success I like is our social media. A few years back, we were granted permission to have our own adult sports Twitter feed as a way to try to reach all the players and talk to them. Because right now, for the most part, the only people I have contact with would be managers, because they sign up. So we have their information, but we don't have the info on all the players. So if you have a team of 10 leagues, or excuse me, a league with 10 teams in it, which could have 100 players, I only have contact info for 10 people. But with Twitter, and using that and having something that's dedicated, so if you follow us, you know you're just going to get adult sports stuff. It's been a huge help, and we're approaching about 1,000 followers on that. So that's been great and a great way. So when all of a sudden rain hits in the middle of the night while we're in a 4-game set for softball, we can quickly get the word out to lots of folks and say, hey, games are canceled. Don't drive out to Mahaney tonight because we're shutting it down. And that works great. So we've trained everyone to look at that. So it's been good. And then free agent placement. For as many teams as we get signed up, as you saw earlier playing, we have 2-3 times as many people that don't have teams. And so they're just free agents floating out there waiting to get picked up by existing teams. Or if we have the opportunity, we try to create teams out of those free agents to play. It only works really in soccer. Because we have multi-levels of play. The other sports, it's a little more challenging to make those things work great. But some of them do, and then they branch off and create their own teams after that. So we've been able to place a lot of folks so they can continue to play. Seniors. We don't, in particular, offer the senior softball programs at this time, but we help facilitate them because they're renters of our parks. And so we have 2, and they're played at Maidu and Mahaney. The South Placer Senior Softball Club is played at Maidu, and then the Sun City softball folks are over at Mahaney. And as you can see by the team numbers there, what they got. South Placer is the bigger one. They play on Tuesday nights, a couple age divisions. They use a couple of fields, which is great. Sun City is a morning program, and they've got their 7 teams, and they just wrapped up recently. And, yeah, that's been going on for, I don't even know, a couple decades at this point, going. I also help put together and work with our softball tournaments that we host for the most part, almost all year. But it's about from Memorial Day through November. But there are a couple of big ones that come through, and they were just recently. So the Youth National, the USA Softball Girls B Western National just happened. That's the one July 24th through the 30th. There were 65 teams, about a half dozen states they came from. And then our local CBS affiliate said that that was going to generate about $1.25 million to the Roseville and Lincoln economies. And that's because we host the majority of the games, but the fields up at Lincoln, at Foskett up in Lincoln, hosted, they had 4 diamonds up there as well. So that was a great boon for both of our cities. And then every weekend around that, we also have just regular tournaments that are coming on. Girls fast pitch, mostly all at Maidu, sometimes at Mahaney. But those are smaller, about 15 to 25 teams come through each weekend. They're more regional, so it's California, Nevada, Oregon, the states we touch. They'll drive in and play just for Saturday, Sunday, and then just go back home again. Back to the seniors, these folks just wrapped up yesterday. So we had the Senior Softball Western National. We host this every year, and it's great. As you can see, it's huge. 145 teams, almost a dozen states. A couple of teams came down from Canada to play. They use Maidu, they use Mahaney. This thing's so big, we're just one of the players that hosts. It goes out to Elk Grove out there as well, the SAC Complex, Lincoln. 145 teams is a lot. They start senior softball, just so you know, at the age of 40 is the first division, all the way up to 90 plus is play in these tournaments. So it's really cool to see. Those are kind of all the big bullet point things I wanted to get across, but it's been a pleasure to be able to come speak with you and tell you what we do. I always like to refer to us, we're the night people. A lot of folks don't see us because we do all our things when people are, when it's dark out and after work, so. Any questions?
I have a quick question. When it comes to officiating, which sports are the most difficult to fill that need, or just aren't filling that need at all?
All of them are problematic. I can only speak for adult sports, but I know what we're up against, and what we're up against is youth sports. And you can make 2 to 3 times as much money officiating youth sports as you can adult sports. So if you're an official and there is a huge list of things that need coverage, where are you going to pick to go officiate? The kids that'll pay you 3 times as much, or the adults? And so it's harder for us to get folks to come out. We always seem to manage to do it, but we're nervous every
surprising.
weekend.
I would have expected the pay to be higher for the adults than the youth, but I guess it's just the way it's funded by each individual team, right? The rates would have to go up so high on the adult sports that it may not be palatable.
Yeah, so this came up recently with adult flag football. So a gentleman said, you raised our fees. Well, the fees went up because we had to pay the officials more. But in general, a flag football team will pay about $750 a season. 8 weeks of play, $75. If you decide to take, and say 10 guys on the team, it's $75 each. You take 11, now you drop down to 66. More than that, you can keep fluctuating that number. Our own youth flag football program, which is the exact same thing, the cost to run that is $145 per person for that. In Rockland, for a youth flag football, for I think it's 8 or 9 weeks, it's $315 per person. So the kids, all that's to cover those costs, again, mainly for officials, just to get people, because there's just not enough. We are told by every officials association that we use, be prepared that you may not have officials show up. And we'll tell you, because we just don't have enough. So, but no sport is immune to the problem.
You know, on the subject of football, as some of you know, I have an interest that goes in football that goes way back. Mm-hmm. Do you have end of seasons tournaments for flag football?
For adults, it's pretty much, it's kind of just cookie cutter. Run the 7 weeks of league play, and then the top 4 teams. If it was 10 teams, then we'll take 6. But usually try to take half the field into playoffs and so forth. And then we're done, take a couple weeks off, start again, repeat.
So that's the Roseville Bowl?
Yeah. And we're very fortunate because most of the teams in every sport we do have been with us for well over sometimes 10, 20 years. They're still out there playing, and it's great.
Yeah, my son participated in the youth program for years. So, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that the same question relative just to the which sports are still having problems with staffing in general? Is it the same that it's all of them, or is there any one particular sport or a couple of sports that seem to be worse off than others?
Soccer is always going to be the hardest, and we do that one in-house. That's the only sport we hire officials internally for. Everyone else is contracted out.
Okay.
We were able to recently pass with the council to raise their fees, but we're still way below what they can get elsewhere, and so forth. And so soccer, we've got a dedicated group. I've got a program leader who helps run that program, who's very high ranking in the Western United States for soccer. So he helps, and he can kind of keep us with officials and tries to get us new ones and so forth. But we need more. We need more because sometimes they actually want to take a day off.
And is it just the officials, though, that is the staffing, or are there other staffing positions that are needed?
No, there's other ones as well. The folks who, we have to put soccer, we don't put somebody other than an official out there because there's 3 of them there and they're Roseville employees, so they can handle it by themselves. The other sports, whether we score keep them or not, we have to put a park and rec staff member out there, and sometimes those are hard to fill as well. We can't use kids because we go past 10 o'clock, so they've got to be over 18.
Okay.
And sometimes the hours are not what they want. It goes too late into the night because we'll go till sometimes almost 11 o'clock at night, or they can't get as many hours as they want, and so forth. So it's a little bit challenging, but.
Okay.
How do you foresee the pickleball playing into all this? Because I'm sure there's going to be a big influx of people that want to play at the very beginning for sure. And do you think, is there any negative to the pickleball, like taking adults from the other sports, or is that beneficial because of the staffing problems, or is the pickleball going to be another staffing issue?
Don't know yet.
Okay.
We got to wait and see how it's all laid out and how we're going to proceed. What I have noticed in most of our sports, the people don't cross over. If you love soccer, you're a soccer person. You're a football person, football, basketball, and so on. Pickleball is a unique one because that's not one with a long, rich history that you grew up playing. So everyone who plays it's kind of picking it up now. So I expect that we'll market to the people who play in our other leagues right now to say, hey, come play this as well. But we just have to wait and see.
A timeline, remind me if we have a timeline for the courts to be opened up
Probably this fall.
this fall.
Relative to the officiating problem, is it possible, or I guess I should ask the question, how hard is it to get accredited as, let's say, a softball or a soccer official?
Soccer is a little bit harder. You have to go through a training that's a little bit more extensive than the other ones, but right now, you could be certified to go out and officiate our sports, youth sports, anything, with basketball, softball, whatnot, after probably about a 3-hour training.
Are we recruiting from our player base for officials that, hey, you love softball, take a season off, make some money, hang out with your friends that like the game still?
Of course. Yeah, and USA Softball puts banners up on our fields from time to time, and I see them all over the region at other parks too. Hey, we want you. They never stop trying to recruit because they just can't get enough folks. The median age for softball umpires is 65 years old. Wow. So the problem is there's not a young influx of officials coming up. So it's a lot of folks that are just old school who just love softball that are still out there, but we need to also get younger folks involved to keep the sport growing.
I work with construction companies. This is sounding very familiar and not in a good way. My other question, did you list facilities as a challenge?
Yeah, facilities are a challenge. It's not so much necessarily always that we need more, but we have to, it's hard to share with what we have because the youth, the kids have to play obviously as well. And so one of the things that has been a challenge that's changed over the years, even with the junior high schools that we use, the coaches are no longer coming from the schools, meaning they're not necessarily teachers to where they can run a practice at 3 o'clock or whatever time they get out. They're off-campus coaches, so they can't practice until, say, after 5, which means now we can't get into the gyms. We don't typically start now till 7 o'clock at night, where we used to start at 6. So that limits the number of teams we can take because we can't be out there until 11 o'clock at night. So we limit how many teams we can take in each league when we're playing at a school site. And I don't see that changing anytime soon either. It's harder for them to find coaches, but let alone on campus.
Well, and so I guess my question is the problem that we don't have enough facilities to accommodate all of our adult sport athletes, or is it that the facilities we have don't have the lights? And even for basketball, I mean, I would think certain times a year anyway, outdoor basketball would be fun. I don't know how many lit outdoor courts we have in the city, though.
Yeah, so with the soon-to-be-built soccer complex, we should be able to help some of our needs there. We run all of our adult soccer right now only on Sundays. That's the day we have. Otherwise, it's hit and miss if leagues are going to run, so it's not so much fair to the fitness center to block rentals that may want to use it, and they are booked constantly by Placer United and other groups. So we're thinking that once that complex opens, that might also help relieve some of the stress on that one synthetic field that's lit to be able to expand out. Because people, like I said, the drop-in is sold out in 10 minutes or less every single Wednesday. So the natural question I get is, well, why don't you expand it? We have nowhere to go because everything else is booked and rented. So we just have our 2 days, Wednesday night, Sundays. That's it for adults, for that sport.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, anybody else? Okay, open it up for public comment and close public comment. Okay, next item is 6.2, presentation by Christy LaRoche about Youth Sports Coalition 2023 scholarship recipients.
All right, good evening. It's with great pleasure for me to present the Youth Sports Coalition 2023 scholarship recipients. First, let me tell you a little bit about the scholarship program. In October 2009, the coalition voted to establish an annual Youth Sports Coalition scholarship program, where each league member selects an athlete from their organization to receive $500 scholarship. Those recipients are submitted to the coalition to be considered for an additional $1,000 scholarship, which is the merit scholarship. In 2014, the coalition discussed the scholarship funding and the possibility of increasing the awards if there is money available, since many leagues actually do not bring forward a candidate. The coalition voted to reallocate excess funds between applicants not awarded the $1,000 merit scholarship. And this is why this year you'll see that they have exceeded the $500. The scholarship requirements include students must be a senior in high school. They need a letter of recommendation from a coach, a teacher, or a mentor. They must have participated in community activities, services, programs, or even projects. And they have to have contributed to the league in some way, such as a referee, an umpire, a coach, a player, or a volunteer. Their grade point average must be 3.5 or higher, and they have to submit an essay on the topic of how youth sports influenced or changed their life. So let's go into our recipients. Since 2009, the coalition has awarded over $45,000 in scholarship monies, and this year at the April 27th, 2023 meeting, the coalition awarded scholarships totaling $4,500 to the following students. We have Nolan Spenker from Roseville Pony Baseball. He was the merit scholarship winner, receiving $1,500. Athena Melville was from Roseville Girls Softball. She is the recipient of a $1,000 scholarship. Campbell Brown from Granite Bay FC also received a $1,000 scholarship. And Ethan LeBlue from Roseville Little League also received a $1,000 scholarship. So first, let's start with Nolan. Nolan has a 4.07 GPA. He plans to attend the University of Oregon and plans to major in business administration with a minor in sports business. Some of the awards he received was he was a Gold Merit Award winner, a Tiger Pride Award winner for the leader in JV baseball. High school extracurricular activities included he was a multi-sport athlete with baseball and volleyball and played at the high school and club level. Some of his contributions was a junior umpire, a volunteer buddy for the Champions program, and assisted the director of the fields with a variety of tasks. And lastly, some community service activities included working with Arcona and doing a cleaning mailbox project. Next up is Athena. Athena has a 3.95 GPA. She plans on attending Western Washington University and major in anthropology with a minor in interdisciplinary studies. Some of her awards that she has received is a variety of awards and honors that have included the Tiger Pride Award at Roseville High School and the Academic Merit Award. Some of her extracurricular activities included being a member of the Key Club, an Avid Club member, the National Honor Society, and playing golf. Her contributions to the league was she was served as an umpire for 6 years, which it sounds like we might need to hire her. Her community service activities have included staying active with the community, such as doing a dog toy making for SPCA, blanket making for the UC Davis Children's Hospital, and a recycling drive to raise money for UNICEF. Moving to Campbell. Campbell is a 4.0 GPA, and she plans on attending Oregon State with a majoring in psychology. Some of the awards she has received is a variety of honors that includes the National Honor Society, Academic Merit Award, Granite Bay High School Lacrosse Scholar Athlete, and the California Scholarship Foundation. Campbell has been a member of the National Charity League and the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. She's also, as I mentioned, is a National Honor Society, and she was a top soccer and Young Life youth group leader. Some of her contributions to her league have included 13 years of being a player of soccer. And lastly, her service and activities include 6 years of top soccer, 6 years of NCL, and 8 years in Young Life. And lastly, we have Ethan. Ethan has a 4.02 GPA. He plans also on attending Oregon University and majoring in kinesiology with the goal of working in sports physical therapy. Some of the awards he received include the Gold Merit Award, the Double Gold Merit Award, and the Tiger Award for freshman basketball. Some of his extracurriculars include that he is a dual sport athlete, having played basketball and baseball. His contributions are that he served as an umpire for 2 years. And then lastly, some of the service activities that he participated in include community service at Bayside Church, coaching for a travel ball baseball team, and 2 additional community service projects. Along with the Youth Sports Coalition, I want to congratulate the outstanding athletes for their accomplishments both on and off the field and wish them the best of luck as they all head into college. This does conclude my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Does the commission have any comments, questions?
Sounds like a great group of young kids, or I should say, young people.
Yes. Congratulations to all those recipients, and it's a wonderful program that Roseville runs to be able to give that opportunity to some of our young athletes to aspire to when they get older. Okay, I'll open the floor to public comment, and I'll close it. So next up, another presentation by Christy LaRoche. Item 6.3, Youth Sports Coalition Spending Authority Approval and Allocating Resources from the Youth Sports Commission.
Okay, so I'm here tonight to bring forth a recommendation from the Youth Sports Coalition to allocate resources from the Youth Sports Coalition portion of funding to the Roseville Girls Softball. This project includes reimbursement of an equipment storage unit that is out at Central Park. Roseville Girls Softball, they went through all the proper project processes, and at the April 27th meeting, 2023, the coalition approved spending authority to Roseville Girls Softball in the amount of $14,148 from the Youth Sports Coalition portion of the funding project. So as a reminder, there's no city funds that are used towards this project. Each individual league has dedicated capital improvement funds, and the reimbursement would come directly from the money set aside from their specific league to be reimbursed for this project. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. I believe each league has a certain amount of money, like $5,000 that they can kind of use at their discretion, but has to get approval. Did the 14,000 come from extra discretionary funds, or did they have rollovers from years? Because I know they were the league that had all the Excel issues. So I'm not sure what their actual budget ended up being at the end.
No, that's a great question. So the amount that they requested is actually their total account balance. So it would be coming directly out of their individual CIP fund.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Is this something we still approve as,
Yeah, I think we have to make a
Action item?
motion.
Yes, it's an action item.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a motion item, so, actually, open it up to public comment and close public comment. So now that that's been done, do we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any opposed?
yeah, all in favor first?
All in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next is LaRoche. Item 6.4, the Future of Youth Sports Coalition, to the recommendation to no longer be a Brown Act body. So you're up, Christy.
Thank you so much. So I am here tonight to provide some information about the recommendation that's coming from the Youth Sports Coalition that will in turn go to City Council. So let me tell you a little bit about that recommendation. The recommendation is the YSC, was also the Youth Sports Coalition, approved a recommendation to City Council to dissolve the coalition as a Brown Act body. So at the July 27th, 2023 meeting, the coalition recommended and voted approving dissolving as a Brown Act body. But what does this mean for the Youth Sports Coalition? Well, let me start with a little bit of history and purpose of this group. So to give you some background, the Roseville Sports Coalition is a unique partnership between 7 local independent youth sports providers and the city of Roseville. The youth sports partners provide athletic activities, opportunities, and competition for participants, and the city provides game and practice fields for their partners. The YSC was established in 2008 with the purpose of recommending ways to create ongoing partnerships with the department, participating school districts, and nonprofit groups to maximize use of recreation facilities, to recommend improvements to existing facilities, to assist the department in planning of future sports facilities, advance the interest of the Roseville community in youth sports, encourage participation in youth sports offered by coalition members and the public in general, and to promote youth sports within the community. And also to apply for grant opportunities or otherwise conduct fundraising activities for specific projects. At the inception of the Youth Sports Coalition, this group was established as a Brown Act body. I'm going to actually turn it over to Mai Ten to provide some history on that.
Christy pretty much covered most of it, but I just wanted to provide some background that you all may or may not know, which was originally in 2008 when the coalition was formed. The idea, the intent at the time was to be able to collectively form a partnership with all of these clubs and in turn collect those funds from each club. The funds were originally supposed to all essentially be in one pot of money that was going to be spent for different improvements to existing facilities or additions or renovations to facilities for the benefit of youth sports as a whole, not necessarily any one particular group. So that was the original intent of the formation of the group, is to improve that partnership, build on some of the existing facility renovations, continue to add on to the operation and maintenance of those facilities, and be able to fund improvements that would benefit all of the groups as a collective. I think over time, I think the coalition somewhat deviated from that original intent, and it then became transitioned over to each group utilizing their own funds from their own accounts to benefit their own club as opposed to for the benefit of the collective of youth sports. So that's just background so that you understand why essentially why the coalition was formed to begin with. But Christy pretty much touched on most of it as well.
It seems to me that if they've got their funds segregated, that this doesn't need to be subject to the Brown Act. You add another layer of bureaucracy when you mess around with the Brown Act.
Well, and let's go into why the change, because that's a really great question. So the YSC approved this recommendation to dissolve being a Brown Act body. So this recommendation is in response to the request and motion from the last meeting about removing this requirement and go to a vote for individual leagues to use their own money for CIP projects. In order to move in this direction, the next step would be working toward achieving this outcome. So why this recommendation? Here's some benefits. So no longer would we require voting by leagues to reimburse individual leagues for expenses. So just to give some perspective, what's happening right now, if we have a league who does a project, so using Roseville girls softball as an example, they completed a project, they went through all the proper lines to make sure that everything in the completion was what we expect. What happens is they now have to spend their money out of their league fund that's totally separate from the coalition. It's their own league fund. Then they come to the coalition. They say, can we get a reimbursement using our CIP funds that are being held by the Youth Sports Coalition? It's really their money. So in all the times I've been involved with a coalition, I've never seen a project not move forward because it's really their money to use. So then what happens is I need to submit that and make sure it's on the Youth Sports Coalition, which we only meet quarterly. So I only get 4 chances a year to ask for their reimbursement. Following that meeting is always the end of the month. So I can't get on the next Park and Rec Commission meeting. So I have to wait an additional month. Then once it's approved here, then I can submit to finance. So sometimes they could wait anywhere from 4 to 6 months to receive a reimbursement of their own money, which, that's hard for many of the leagues, right? So this will also make meeting flexibility. Oftentimes, many of the boards that we work with on these 7 individual leagues, their boards change. They're all volunteers. And so sometimes our meetings and when they're set, it's too difficult to get somebody there. Now we have a little more flexibility. If we need to meet with them one-on-one to talk through things, if we need to get a group together that share one particular field, if we need to have a remote meeting because we can get more attendance there, we now have that flexibility to do that. We would no longer be bound by an agenda. I can't tell you how many times we have been in the Youth Sports Coalition meeting. Many of you have served on the Youth Sports Coalition as commissioners, and how many times something comes up and we all say, oh, we can't talk about that, but we can put it on the next meeting. So we have to wait 3 months to have that conversation, which it would be a great conversation to have, but we're bound by the Brown Act. We can't do that. The recommendation does not remove any of the benefits. The coalition will absolutely remain intact. And I'll show you on the next slide in a moment some of the things that will stay intact. But lastly, that the funds will still be managed by the City of Roseville as voted on at the last meeting. So we'll still manage their individual CIP accounts and reimburse them as they go through the project process, and hopefully reimburse them much more timely, which will be beneficial. So this next one just really shows you the future of the Youth Sports Coalition. And you will see we listed everything that's really associated, for the most part, it's associated with the Youth Sports Coalition. We still plan to meet quarterly. That will certainly not change. In fact, we have now the ability to add meetings if needed, especially as allocations are being defined during the spring and the fall, depending on the sports. The only thing that you will see as unchecked is that the meetings would require a quorum, agendized, meeting the Brown Act, and there would be a formal meeting structure. There will still be somewhat of a formal meeting structure. We'll still take meeting minutes. We'll still do a lot of the things that you see now. It just gives us a little bit more flexibility. We still anticipate doing youth sports field allocations. We will still collect a per player fee that helps us cover the use of the field and the ongoing maintenance. We still plan to involve them in the process of any recommendations about improvements to currently existing spaces or future spaces. We still need them to go through the process to get any work completed, approved prior to doing it. We definitely want to still do the youth sports scholarship. We find it hugely beneficial, and as you saw tonight, many athletes do benefit from it. Absolutely, they can recommend for future construction. We definitely want to encourage league participation. We plan to still keep up the website. We plan to still keep up really good partnerships with all of our leagues and support them as they move forward. And we would still have City of Roseville point of contacts to help with allocations, any issues with facilities, any improvements that need to be worked through. So what we're really excited about is we are planning a workshop. So our next scheduled Youth Sports Coalition meeting is on October 26, 2023. This meeting will serve as a workshop for our sports leagues and city staff to discuss how do we want to move forward. What is this going to look like? Some of the items in the meeting may include meeting frequency, may include meeting times, future initiatives. We're going to take the opportunity to review the athletic field and facility use document along with the allocation policy. We're going to make some recommendations about some future items and talk through any other topics that representatives from the 7 leagues find beneficial for us moving forward. We have been really lucky to have commissioners sit on the Youth Sports Coalition. We really would love our 3 Park and Rec commissioners, as they've been awesome additions to the coalition, that we hope you guys selfishly can participate in this workshop too and helping us move forward and really establish what that's going to look like. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Christy, can you remind me which of the 7 leagues that are participants?
Sure. It's Maidu Little League, Granite Bay Football Club, Roseville Youth Soccer, Roseville Girls Softball, Roseville Little League, Pony, and Wood Creek. Thank you. This was a group effort.
Back in the tent right there, man.
So, if they don't want to be a Brown Act anymore, and I totally take Nick's point, I think that for the most part, this is a good thing. I just always go to worst case scenarios. It looks like 4 diamond sports, baseball and softball, and 3 soccer leagues. I just want to make sure that the soccer leagues are very comfortable understanding that they're now kind of outvoted, and if there isn't a quorum and the baseball leagues show up, they can, these are the reasons the Brown Act is in place, and for good reasons. So I think, again, while I'm not opposed to this at all, I would hope that the participants would still want to act in the best intentions of why the Brown Act was created and not for any bad purposes. And I'm sure with city staff there, you guys can act as kind of an informal guard against that as well. So I guess that's my only hang up on it is that it does kind of provide that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 5 diamond sports and 2 soccer, so
right.
They're already outnumbered as it is now.
But at least before the item has to be on an agenda, they can come and kind of defend themselves, whereas without that, that's the point of the Brown Act.
And quite honestly, the items that were kind of overarching would be more like the player fee, and they don't really have much say in that anyway. So other than that, it's more field allocation and whatever improvements they want to do, and there's not a lot of crossover. And kind of to your point, conceivably the Diamond Sports could not approve one of the soccer projects, even in today's thing, and then it would be dead, and the league might have already spent their money and wouldn't be. It's never happened, but
No, and I don't expect that it would.
But that type of thing, could have already been in place.
But at least it would have to be agendized, ahead of time for the Soccers to go and make their case. And
Really, it was more around field allocation, making sure the fields are safe and playable, and that type of thing. And it really just offers a lot more flexibility, timeliness with the payments, and a lot less opportunity for violating the Brown Act, which I'm sure our legal team would be happy with. So, there was a lot of benefits. I think there was just a question on or an assumption that our commission would no longer be need for participation. If anything, we typically served as more of a just kind of a impartial mediator to some extent, running the meeting so that, someone wasn't, driving it. But I don't know that that's a necessary thing. The leagues seem to work well together as it stands. I would still happily be involved to whatever extent, but I think the role may change to more of a liaison thing versus, running the meeting, so.
And we can decide that too, the workshop. I think that's a
Exactly.
great opportunity to go, what does this look like? And that's a great example to bring up. Is there a benefit to, a Park and Rec commissioners remaining on to be that neutral party, that sounding board? Maybe, right? So I think that the workshop will be
To the extent I
great.
was impartial, I still had, girls in the sports, so it was,
Oh, go ahead.
I was at the Youth Sports Commission meeting, and just a few notes that I took. What some of the concerns that were mentioned, I think one of the main ones was they were concerned about not having a good checks and balances system in place, and they saw that these quarterly meetings, gave them a couple of the representatives, they said it gave them some comfort, to come every 3 months and know that everybody's taking a look at the Excel spreadsheets and the city was really involved and that it was all being monitored, that everybody was playing fairly. They were concerned that there wouldn't be minutes at a meeting if there's no Brown Act and nothing to refer back on. And they had requested, I know we already don't keep to the Brown Act really at those meetings because people send replacements all the time and everything, but they were kind of hoping that at the next meeting they would be able to get examples of what the bylaws might look like before kind of bringing it to city council to end it. I think the workshop in October sounds like exactly what they wanted but pre-decision. So, and I think we're supposed to vote on this tonight to take off, or no?
Informational item
Oh, this is
only.
informational?
Yeah, it goes
Okay.
to city council.
Okay, so those I think were the biggest concerns. There was one league that was very unsure about how to vote. And I think because of the way that two of the league presidents, were concerned, Renee and I did abstain, and because we figured we would just vote with the majority because it's really it's their funds, it's their league. So regarding minutes, checks and balances, and kind of all of the overarching running of that, is there anything, that you could add to?
Yeah, well, we certainly want to address all of those at the workshop. We want them to walk away not feeling as though that they've lost anything, because they haven't. The coalition most certainly is still intact. We still plan on doing minutes if they request it. It's helpful for us, as city staff, to go through and make sure that, we know every meeting and the outcome of each meeting. The checks and balances with the finances, absolutely, but they may decide they want it more frequently or less frequently. Completely up to them as part of that workshop to really decide what does this look like moving forward. So we want to address all of those concerns and make sure that as they leave that workshop that they feel confident moving forward that, okay, this was one small thing removed, but everything else is still intact and the city will still follow through as promised.
Okay.
So I was there as well, as she said. I'm kind of along the lines of Jeff and his thinking. And I will say this, I do the minutes for the school district. I feel the importance of those, and I know you're saying that you'll still take minutes, but there's no need for a quorum, so there doesn't have to be a set number there. There's no need to vote on them, so it really becomes very informal. That, in my point of view, it could almost be like during COVID, where you could do a lot of this just via email. I don't know that going forward, if there's that extra added layer of you have to be here, you have to be for the minutes. I'm sorry, if I've got something else planned, maybe, a kid's practice that I really don't want to miss, or something, I'm going to go to that. I don't know if they're going to make that much of an effort to come to the meetings, however they may look, when they don't really need to.
No, that's a great perspective. So one of the rules as it stands today, which again, it's something that can be examined, for leagues to remain in the coalition, of the 4 meetings, they have to be present for 3. So that's the standard to remain as a part of the coalition.
Is that like in their bylaws?
It is.
Okay.
So, we follow through with those. We contact any league that missed 2 in a row, and we say, you are currently on probation. You must attend, the next so many meetings. Again, I don't see as that something going away. With the coalition, we don't have a lot of action items. It's really just a great opportunity for our sports leagues to come together. We like to have presentations. Tara came out this last one. She was able to present
Right.
on the sports complex. Just keep them as informed as possible of a lot of the great things coming that will benefit their sports leagues. They've been really involved since my time at the coalition. I started in 2019 with them. And I have to say, even through COVID, I was so impressed with the involvement of all the leagues. And I really don't foresee that changing. Of course, that's something that we can address in the bylaws. But as I mentioned, they do have to make sure they cannot miss 2 in a row.
Well, we didn't know that part, or it didn't come up at our meeting. And I think for me, that would have changed some of my outlook on it if I had known that they do have to attend a certain, that was my concern is, well, why are you going to come to a meeting if there's no Brown Act and you don't have to? So, okay.
I mean, really, it would to their own benefit to show up. There's, what the organization that was least on board with the change or hesitant with the change, it was more so concern of, will the allocation process change if his league is no longer, if it's no longer a Brown Act, is it going to be, could some other private league come to the city and start taking the field allocation away from him if they had a better relationship or something, that type of thing. So, really, it's in their best interest to attend the meetings and work to collaboratively on things. And really, the only action items that I ever saw there was approving people's funds that they'd already spent, or kind of the structure of how the commission was run, or the committee was run, as far as how they were going to approve the money and those types of things. So,
And some of the issues that might have come up on the actual facilities was also sometimes talked. They would do that behind the scenes as well, but yes.
Discussed, but there was no action.
Yeah,
on it.
exactly.
So there's, very.
Some of the members did also say that they do believe that there is a benefit to know kind of what's going on with every other league and every other team, and if they were concerned that they wouldn't get the field allocations that they want if, there's little meetings going on behind the scenes and somebody knows somebody who knows somebody would get the better allocations. And, so that was also part of the checks and balances system they were concerned about.
I've got 2 questions. Mentioned that the timing of when it goes to city council versus when the workshop is. So is it on city council schedule at this point?
I don't think so.
Is that going to happen after the workshop or before? Or is it intended?
Our intention is to put it on the city council agenda prior to that workshop. So that workshop will happen contingent on the city council approving the coalition being dissolved as a Brown Act.
Okay.
And then at that point, we would, and kind of going back, because I was at the last coalition meeting. Our intent is to send, the coalition members should already have our policy, how the coalitions run, is to get them that document so they can start looking at it and start to marinate on what changes they would like to see. And then as we go into October, that's when we'll kind of, as Christy had mentioned, talk about how these meetings would, potentially change. At a minimum, nothing will change on how we run the coalition meetings. If nothing else, things may increase in frequencies, right? Or how we communicate. But minimally, as Christy kind of showed you that benefits chart, nothing will change in how those meetings are run or how we run those meetings.
Okay, because I could see them saying, okay, we're going for this vote to dissolve, but we don't really know what it looks like afterwards if we don't have the workshop first. So I'm just asking about the timing of those 2 things, and really it's not up to us, it's up to them and what they're comfortable with on that one. And I have one more, but feel free to, if you want to chime in on that.
I just wanted to chime in on that, so thank you. if the city is open to increasing the frequency of the meetings anyway, and that seems to be the main driver of this, is that they need to meet more often so they can get their funds turned around more quickly. I guess to me, that takes away a lot of the benefits of leaving the Brown Act.
I don't think it's necessarily that they wish to meet more per se. It gives us the ability to, if they do a project, for us to be more timely in their reimbursement. It also creates an opportunity to where, an example, we have 2 leagues right now that are sharing a field. We have to be very cognizant of if and when we meet and how we meet, and to document that sort of interaction, just to make sure that we're covering all of our bases. This now makes it so it's great. You two are sharing a league. Let's get together on Thursday, sit down, and really decide how we can allocate this field to benefit both parties. So we can do it more frequent. Right now, what's happening is we're contacting one league, having a conversation. Now we're going to another league, having a conversation, and then we're trying to meld together. This creates an opportunity if we should even need it.
Under the Brown Act, you can talk with 2 even together, though, out of a group of 7.
Yeah, sometimes there's 3. So, we were talking about the diamond, the diamond fields, and, we have multiple, more than 2, 5, I think we talked about. So
I didn't mean to completely take away from the point. I guess the overall point that I just wanted to make was, if the city is open to making some of these changes anyway, and I don't have a problem with it not being a Brown Act, I just wonder if a third door of still being a Brown Act with these changes might also be something that they would want to look into. And I'm happy to support whatever the YSC wants to do, so.
I think that if they were competing for funds, that's where you need the Brown Act, okay? But the funds are segregated for each team. And the reason why you have the Brown Act, if they were competing for funds, is so nobody got left at the starting line. So having said that they're not competing for a bunch of funds from our department, then I truly believe the Brown Act's not necessary.
So I have a question on being able to come out of the Brown Act if the funds are either held by public or by the city at a certain point. Doesn't that not allow you to break away from the Brown Act? At least that's been my understanding with another board that I'm on that is Brown Act required because of the funds being tied with tax dollars.
It's not my understanding that just because the city holds those funds that it would trigger or not trigger the Brown Act. I would have to look into whatever board that you were involved in. But that should not have any influence over whether or not this organization is considered to be governed by the Brown Act or not. I think as it stands, the clubs donate, contribute their money to the city, and we just hold it in a city account, but that money was never public funds to begin with.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just to add on to that, it's not put into our general fund. There is a separate fund for the Youth Sports Coalition, so it's not intermingled with tax dollars. So there really, if the tax dollars was the concern, there is no intermingling of funds with tax
I guess
dollars.
on that topic then, that was kind of my one hang up on it, just with my other board that I'm on. But why, if you go back in the history of it, but why then was it ever a Brown Act related board to begin with? Does anyone know?
No, other than because it falls under Park and Recreations, it was natural for it to be a sub-body of the Parks and Rec Commission, and to then staff it with members of our commission.
Yeah, I think you explained because the council created it, it kind of automatically became a.
Yes, yeah.
So now that it's still sort of connected with Parks and Rec.
It is, but so since City Council formed the coalition, only City Council can dissolve it. And so they can still remain as an informal body even if they're, if City Council decides to dissolve it. Yes, it would still kind of fall under recreation. I mean, it does, but if it's already dissolved by, council action, then that's okay.
Being dissolved as an entity by itself?
No,
or?
well, when we use the word dissolution, it's just more so means just to remove the Brown Act requirements. They're not necessarily dissolving as a coalition. It's more so just removing the requirements to be governed by the Brown Act requirements. they're still a coalition.
I mean, I'm imagining it was already reviewed from a legal standpoint many different ways, so I'm not trying to,
No,
I don't even have a law degree, but I just was thinking about it from that
There was a
standpoint.
previous discussion in the group where they voted on whether they wanted to have the city continue keeping the money in a city account versus just giving that money straight to the leagues. And the leagues decided that they wanted to continue with the city keeping keeping a portion of those funds separate, just for some sense of security that
Yeah.
there's
Oversight of some sort?
when you have, a new president, because like the boards, they turn over, quite a bit of turnover in those boards. And so if someone new coming along and having to start fresh versus, okay, well, at least we've got some funds available in their CIP fund to do some things. So they decided to keep the funds with the city for that point. Because at one point, a lot of them just wanted to get over the delay in funding is
I
it's
get that,
my
yeah.
money, just give it to us up front or don't even collect it out of
Right.
the player fund and just they could keep that portion when they charge their league fee. So they already kind of they had a chance to take away some of that already.
Christy, is there any reason that this can be postponed going to city council and have city council or do the October 26th workshop, present that to the leagues, give them all the background, the understanding of what the future looks like, and then bring it, ask them again if that's how they want to move forward, and if so, then bring it to city council? So, because that's kind of what I think that's the takeaway from the last meeting, was that was kind of what they were expecting, was that next meeting, they would see like a draft of what the future was going to look like, and then they were going to make the decision. Just because there were some people that were not present, who were, presidents of the leagues that had subs that day. I think we had 2. So they didn't, really know how to vote. And then on top of that, we had the 2 that were a little iffy. So just to make sure everybody's really comfortable with it, would that be possible?
Yeah, I have to defer.
Yeah, it's something we'll have to talk through and
City
consider
council meets
that.
every 2 weeks, so it
But
seems
they've
like we could get
voted
right
already,
on the
right?
November.
So they already voted that item. They would not revisit whether or not they want to, recommend dissolution. That is already a passed motion. So it's up to staff to determine and potentially work with the clubs to see if and when they we want to present that to council. But that won't be revisited by the coalition.
Is there we've talked about a lot of different things. Is there anything that we haven't discussed that comes up as a concern, or that, just to kind of close the loop?
I don't think so.
It seems straightforward.
I think
but,
we tried to convey a little, the benefits and kind of the direction and kind of, I guess, playing off some of Nick's comments, just about the flexibility of being able to, allow them to do what they want to do. And again, a lot of it comes down to voting for spending their funds. And that's really what drove them making this recommendation, was not waiting 6 months to spend their own money.
How much realistically does it shorten that time frame for reimbursement?
It could be 1 week.
Okay, so it
Yeah.
is a significant change. Yeah.
I said the next day, and Randy was at the meeting. She slapped me. She goes, "I can't do it the next day." She said about a week. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it's a very
Pretty
quick
quick.
turnaround for sure.
And if I could just add one comment, that I think it's to the benefit of both the city and all of the sports leagues for the coalition to remain intact. We've talked about their funds and what that will do for them, but they also contribute a large amount of funding to the city that allows us to maintain the fields. If the coalition were to dissolve, we would not have those funds to maintain the fields. So we want the coalition to continue. They want it to continue because field allocations are a huge thing to them.
Yeah.
So really, the goal is to just make it more functional without being so restrictive.
Just out of curiosity, how would the process for a reimbursement of a league's own funds differ with the dissolution of the coalition as a Brown Act body?
That's a great question. So they would submit their request, and their request would start with me, and then I would funnel it through the parks. They would review it. Sometimes, based on their project, we would have to go out to the site to review. So using the one that was approved tonight, they went out to Central Park. They looked at the space. They decided where that should go, and we worked with parks. They approved it moving forward, and then, so what would happen after that point is once they had invoices in hand and gave them to us upon either completion of the project or at the start of the project, we would go ahead and submit to finance, and as Jeff said, they could receive their check potentially within a week.
It bypasses most of the meetings that you would have then had to route them in, right? Okay.
Yes, correct.
Well, now,
You were doing that due diligence anyway as far. And
Yes.
so really, you're eliminating the YSC vote, the Parks and Rec Commission, and the council vote on the use of the funds.
well, for some,
Timing of all those.
for somebody who's been subject to the Brown Act for his own business, there's noticing requirements, and it's very bureaucratic, and for them to use their own money, it's just completely unnecessary.
So that's what I was going to say, is couldn't that key issue be resolved by the city council passing an ordinance saying, as long as you're only spending your own money, we will grant blanket approval for anything up to a certain high amount and get rid of a lot of this bureaucracy without having to completely get rid of the safeguards provided by the Brown Act? Those are the kinds of things that, I hope would be discussed and thought about before taking so drastic of an action, I guess.
Well, it's not like that's the noticing requirements, that.
But you wouldn't have to.
I mean, not now, but what I'm saying is with the Brown Act.
I agree. I understand the issues of Brown Act.
I know you do.
Yeah. But there are benefits too, and that's where I'm just saying is let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. And again, I don't mean to be this huge Brown Act defender guy, but I think that there are other creative ways to get around what seems to be the core issues. And I do think that there are some good things, because the opposite recommendation that I would have is if they're sure, yeah, let's get rid of the Brown Act. I hope that the informal coalition writes some bylaws that has a lot of those protections in there about attendance or quorums and those kinds of things, so that maybe legally it's not the Brown Act, but their bylaws are written in a strong way to make those same kind of protections. And I'm very comfortable either way.
I just want to chime in quickly. So the Youth Sports Coalition already has bylaws established, so that could be a framework from which they start off of. And, obviously, perhaps, should they choose to, should City Council approve it, we would potentially remove references to the Brown Act, but still work off of the existing structure and add or take away things as the coalition sees fit.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
It's info only.
Just no.
Okay.
rather vote.
And that was just an information-only item, so open public comment. Close public comment.
The agenda does say,
And that's why I said that. The agenda does not say it was an information-only
It's a
item.
recommendation, whereas the other ones say information item only.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was going to need a vote.
This was exact verbiage was actually on the Youth Sports Coalition agenda. So I think we're just referencing that we're presenting this and that referencing back to the Youth Sports Coalition meeting, that was the recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Christy. Next up is item 6.5, information only, update from Tara G. on park development.
Well, good evening. I've spent the evening listening to how short we are on facilities, worrying about field allocation, so I'm glad to be here to present what's in the future for park development.
Oh, that's where I was reading from here.
So to start off with, we recently completed 4 CIP projects. One you heard about already on Saturday. We had a ribbon cutting for the Royer Park Playground, and it's a destination level playground that we're very proud of. And if you haven't been there, just to watch the kids play on it is just phenomenal. We have Prop 68 per capita grants to thank for helping us and offsetting those costs. Coming up is some park dedications on September 16th for Four Corners Park, as well as Audrey Husking Park. And those are here on the map. They're blocks away from each other in West Roseville. They've been open for a little bit, and we're glad to be able to set a date and celebrate both park openings, especially Audrey Husking. She's been a commissioner for a very long time and has served the city well, not only on the Parks and Recreation Commission, but also the Planning Commission. And the last park here that had the fences taken down is Crimson Ridge Park in Campus Oaks. We also had two other smaller play structures replacements that were completed this spring, and that's a small play structure at Kenwood Oaks Park, as well as Dulcie Stevenson Park. Many of you may recall what the play structure looked like at Royer Park. This is a picture of that, and just to briefly say, lots of people, we've had lots of questions about why are we replacing this? The structure was at the end of its useful life. It was worn and needed ongoing maintenance. Replacement parts were getting more and more difficult to find, and they were also costly to obtain. I compare the situation a lot like an old used car, where at a certain point you have to weigh the cost benefits of and overall resources required to keep it running safely and or replace it. At a certain point, it's just too much to be able to keep an old car running, and that's the situation here. We did a lot of public outreach, over a year worth of public outreach, where we started asking children what they wanted in a playground. What are their favorite things? And we had a great turnout on that. We shared all of those submissions with vendors, the playground designers, and we picked the top 3 and put it back out for a vote. And so this is the winning design, and we're very happy about this. It's really tall. And so when you go out there, when I first went out there, I heard a lot of screaming, and I thought, oh no, is it too high? And then a little girl pops out and she goes, that was the funnest thing ever. I want to do it again. So it's really fun to be able to do that. Four Corners Park, here's a picture of Four Corners Park, and the fences came down around December. I think it was a Christmas gift to the neighborhood because it'd been so long in the making, and part of it was because we had manufacturing delays, and it was quite a delay. But we're happy that it's open, and we are happy to see everybody enjoying that. Audrey Husking Park is the other one that's in the same West Roseville area, and we're happy to be able to get that one completed. We had a little bit of some materials delays also, but not as much as Four Corners. So things are coming back just a little bit, and the fences came down in the spring. I want to talk a little bit about Crimson Ridge Park. This is in the Campus Oaks area, and as some of you may have heard, there have been some concerns with regards to this park. This park was built turnkey or by the developer, which is Lennar Homes. Lennar had expended the budget. It was a small budget, and they expended the budget. And unfortunately, some of the turf was removed, or not some of it, a lot of the turf was removed from the project in order to meet budget. Lennar has since turned this over to the city, and we are working on some solutions to enhance the park, to make it more aesthetically pleasing, as well as add some play value on it. This will take a bit of time, but we're committed to making some enhancements to this park. I also wanted to point out on the map that this is the entire Campus Oaks area so far as parks goes. So in the black circle is Crimson Ridge, and to the right on the screen is Campus Oaks Park, it's a larger park that will provide some additional recreation play value. And on the bottom there, the note of CO61, that's a 6-acre neighborhood park for which we will begin planning and designing that in the fall of this year. So right across the street, and you can see well, you can hardly see, but hopefully you can see the configuration of the park. It's much more conducive to a neighborhood park where we can put some of those traditional play features that you're used to seeing when you go visit a park. All right, underway or about to be underway. Of course, the soccer complex is underway. And many of you were at the groundbreaking on June 8th, so we're very excited to be able to start that. It's a 2-year process, so we hope to be finished in late 2025. The other projects, somebody asked about the courts at Gibson Park. Those first phase is 9 lighted pickleball courts. And so we're hoping to see that completed in the fall of this year. So it's very exciting to have all those pickleball courts. We also have Denial Family Park opening up. And that is, if you recall, is the one, for some of you to recall, it's the one that has the disc golf course. So we're very excited to be able to have a disc golf course. A lot of our focus this year has been those signature elements, the Royer Playground, the soccer complex, pickleball courts, and now we'll have our own disc golf course. In addition to disc golf, we'll also have a fenced off-leash dog park and support facilities. I mentioned Campus Oaks Park, that's underway, and about to break ground. Well, actually, Solaire broke ground. Solaire is a school park site right next to Westbrook Elementary, and we do have planned 2 ball fields that are going to go in. No, I'm sorry, not Solaire Park, Riego Creek Park. Riego Creek Park is right next to Riego Creek Elementary School, and that's where the 2 ball fields are. Solaire Park is going to be a natural park, as well as offer green space, as well as gathering spaces. All right, new parks that were approved in the fiscal year 2024 budget. We've got 6 new neighborhood parks, and I will say that we're going to chunk it out because we're going to do 3 in the fall, starting with public outreach, and then we'll do another 3 with public outreach in the spring. So the first 3, C63, which is Creekview. CO61 is the Campus Oaks site that I pointed out earlier, and FD50 is a small park site in Sierra Vista. So those 3 we're going to start public outreach, and FD51, KT52, and DF50, all in Sierra Vista, will begin public outreach in the spring. I do want to point out one yellow circle there, and that is John Bayou Park. That is a park next to Rex Fortune Elementary School. Rex Fortune opened in August. They had their groundbreaking last month, and they're opening this month. And so that is still in the works with some staffing challenges. This one, we're hoping to be able to break ground in the spring of 2024. This year, our capital rehabilitation budget was approved at $4.7 million. That is one of the highest rehabilitation budgets we've had in quite a number of years since I've been here. And you can see in this slide, there's a wide range of projects we are working on. This is a transition right now. In earlier years, Nick, you'll remember, in earlier years, all we talked about was park development, new parks, new parks, new parks. Well, now we have to take care of what we own, take care of what we are building. And so $4.7 million worth of taking care of our projects and our existing assets. I don't know if you knew we had a barn, but we have a barn, and we're going to take it down. It's in the west or the east side of town. It's located off of Old Auburn Road, and it's virtually inaccessible to the public. This park is in a natural space, and to keep things safe, to avoid an attractive nuisance, we are going to take it down. It's on its last legs, so we want to make sure that the neighborhood as well as people are safe with that. And the other thing to point out too is we have 3 play structure replacements, one at Twinwood Park, one at Hall Park, and another one at Veterans Park South. And Veterans Park South is the one that you can access off of Blue Oaks. But let's not forget total park renovations. We've got two well-loved parks here, and a lot of you are familiar with Weber Park and the efforts that we've put into redesigning, revitalizing Weber Park. And the main thing about Weber Park that is going to be such a benefit is to take that high end of the park off of Main Street and lowering it down to street level for easy views and a sense of creating a better sense of safety and, really an opportunity to reinvent that park. So how many yards of dirt are we removing? We're removing 11,700 cubic yards of dirt. So if anybody needs dirt, please call me.
Wagon and your shovel.
Wagon and your shovel.
You and I have done that before, so.
Yes, Nick, we have. So spread the word. We
Okay.
need to get that out. Right now, where we're at is in the CEQA, or the environmental review process. We're getting toward the end of it. And honestly, I got to find where that dirt's going to go in order for us to finish that CEQA document. Once that document is finished, then we will take the master plan and the CEQA document. CEQA is California Environmental Quality Act, or an environmental clearance to council for adoption of the CEQA and approval of the master plan. But concurrently, because we're going through the CEQA, we are almost done with construction documents. There's a lot of information that is being asked during that process that we have to have in the plans anyways. So we are still on target to break ground in the spring of 2024, assuming we find a place for dirt. And the other one too, Sogstad Park, that's not talked about too often, but Sogstad Park, I don't know if you're familiar, but it's within a floodplain, and it's also over a landfill. And so we've been working with the solid waste department, EU, as well as their consultants and the county to identify parameters for which we can make improvements to the park. And we are also working with our flood management folks within the city to ensure that whatever we build is going to ensure that we're not building back up upstream and affecting other properties. We're making great headway with that, and everything's really looking positive, both on the landfill side as well as the flood management side, to be able to move forward with some new improvements. So what it means is we'll take out the two ball fields out of commission and totally reinvent the Sogstad Park site. So that is a complement to Royer Park and not a opposite of it. The Royer Park is so well loved that we want to make Sogstad part of that positive activity. So once we get through those reports, again, we're almost done, and we'll go through a CEQA process like we did with Weber Park. And this concludes my presentation. As a reminder, this is an information item only. No action is being sought tonight, and I stand ready for any questions you may have.
I have a question regarding the Park by Campus Oaks. I watched the city council meeting a few weeks ago. Now, obviously, that was not a park that we had to develop because it was supposed to be done by the developer. So now that it seems like we are taking that under our wing, was there funding available for that? And how is that being paid for if Lennar already had overspent and we have already approved the budget?
Yeah, we're looking for money. We're working with the city manager's office to identify some additional funding so that we can add to it. But you're right. The developer, there's a budget. There's a budget for every park, and they fully expended what the budget was. So we're seeking offsets and other options and alternatives.
And I might add to that, Tara, she's exactly right. We're just looking for all possibilities. And one is to see if Lennar will continue to partner with us to provide some additional funding. But Tara also showed the other park to the south of the Crimson Ridge. there's a budget for that too. Might the residents be interested in cutting down some of the amenities that could have been at that park to put those dollars into Crimson Ridge? I don't know whether they will or not, but those are all the different options that we're looking at to find the funding.
Then is Campus Oaks Park going to be more open to the rest of the community as opposed to it being more of a Campus Oaks Park? I mean, that's what I would think of, that was more of like a development residential park for them. So now are we
Yeah.
opening it up as being a Roseville Park?
All of our parks are Roseville parks,
yeah.
no matter who built it, except for, I will say, an apartment complex where they have a gated, situation. But yeah, it may seem like because they're very intimate to Campus Oaks, that it may just only serve the Campus Oaks area, which, we do. We want people who live in that area to enjoy and use the parks, but they're always open to anybody who wants to go and enjoy it.
Well, it's great if anybody has to take, this on and, take it on, it's you, and you'll make it great, so.
Sandra, it was always intended for the park, or for the city to take over this park.
Because at the city council meeting, or what I was watching, it didn't sound, that wasn't really clear. It seemed like the residents were more.
Talk about turnkey parks a
Yeah,
little bit.
turnkeys, so early on in the long-range planning phase of it, so long-range planning is where you decide where the parks go, road, schools, et cetera. And we ask the developers often if they want to build this park in advance of neighbors being there. Some say yes, most say no. And when it's no, then we collect the funds that would go into building the park, and we build it after a certain number of people live there after we've built up that fund. The benefit of a developer building it up front is it's a marketing tool, and it allows people to see what they're moving in, next door or across the street. In the case of this one, this park was not to be a turnkey park. However, Lennar approached us when they were building, and they asked to build it turnkey. So we did agree to it. We had a development agreement, park development agreement, and established the budget based on the financing plan. And instead of the city collecting the funds that would go into a park fund to build it, they kept those dollars and built the park with those dollars, the same amount of money that we would have spent had we built it ourselves. So it would, to your Jill's point, it always was going to be a city park.
However, I think the difference is, because I think I remember that park coming through as a design review, right? Mm-hmm. Correct? So if, though, the budget issue rears its head when it's one that we're going to be building, we can resolve all of the potential conflicting things or, and prioritize, right? We have more control over that prioritization.
Yes.
Correct?
You are absolutely right.
Right, so in this case, the city was not consulted as to what things were going to be taken out because of budget. Is that?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that. However, when it came to light that we had a real budget issue, there were very few choices left to make at that point. To your point as well, Regina, is that if the city had built it, we would have been ahead of that and made some more strategic choices, if you will. But it's not to say that Lennar didn't try,
Right.
because they did. It was just, timing of decision-making that was really a challenge.
So where I was going with that is one of the questions I had was, what is the process for reviewing those? And is there a way to make it a more proactive process for turnkey parks in the future?
Yeah, we do have some safeguards in our park development agreement, and honestly, the successes change depending on who's managing the project. And so, unfortunately, communications weren't as good as perhaps we would like, and so we just need to establish more greater expectations with the people we're working with on the next turnkey.
I had two actually other kind of unrelated questions. What is the typical lifetime for the play equipment? Just what should be expected?
Yeah, 20 years-ish. It's been 25 for this one.
Gotcha.
So 20 years, and I kind of chuckled because sometimes it depends on where it's at and how well-loved it is.
I was going to say hard used, but
Yeah.
yes, well-loved is a better way to say it.
Depends on the kids in the neighborhood.
Yes, that's true, too.
And then the other question I had, just relative to Weber Park and the off-haul soil, are you guys getting it tested? Because I know a lot of times before companies will say, yes, I want it, they want to see the test results.
Yes, we already have a geotechnical report, and we also have a Phase 1 assessment, so it's clean dirt. So that's,
Yeah,
well,
sometimes
it's
that can be
good.
a little bit of a sticking point, so
Yes.
just, in case there's anybody out there watching, they know.
question, it is clean dirt.
Yep, cool, thank you.
Thank you.
With regards to these new parks, what does the public outreach look like? And is it also geared towards like children, like the play structure renovation was for Royer Park?
We typically don't do as the type of robust outreach that we did with the play structure really targeted, because it's year after year, Royer Park has been #1 in people's favorites. That being said, we do a robust public outreach process. We do reach out to the neighborhoods and ask them to participate in several public workshops. Some are virtual. We've learned over these years that virtual has its benefits for people not having to go face to face. We've seen lots of participation where you can just, turn on the computer and participate. And we also combine that also with some in person too. So we'll collect the feedback and explain the process of designing a park. I know Jeff has gone through that, so he's saying yes, so tell me what I'm not telling what I'm doing. And then we take that feedback and we provide a sketch. We get more feedback from the residents about what they like or what they don't like. We, again, redo the master plan so that, and post it online, and then we tell anybody and everyone that you can now have a vote or a 2-week write-in period. So, and let us know, do you like this? Did we hit it on the mark? And if we don't, we'll go back out and have another public workshop to decide or have help deciding what direction we want to go. By doing those 3 different types of outreach, we're able to hit a larger variety of people. Some people can't come because they have a conflict, or they have a soccer game or whatever, and some people are able to rewatch the recorded video that we post online as well, so they can catch up. They can come in person if people are more comfortable that way. And again, a write-in period doesn't mean you have to show up at any point in time. You can do it, in your bunny slippers at midnight and give us your feedback on that. So it's been pretty successful being able to offer that. And then we come here and seek approval. And once a recommendation is made here, we go to City Council for approval of the master plan.
So does that include youth, or is it mostly like adult residents of the neighborhood?
The youth have come and participated. They do, families do come and participate as well.
And I can certainly speak to that experience. I was very involved as a private resident before I was here on the Four Corners aspect, or as my family calls it, our front yard. And the one of the big aspects that the neighborhood kids got involved was they wanted the pathway through the middle of the park to be like a racetrack. And so the city kind of put a stripe down the middle of it, and sure enough, it's mostly scooters that I see racing down it, but, the kids are racing down it. And, obviously that's the one I know the best, but I can just say that park in particular is absolutely a direct product of the outreach that you did with the half-court basketball. And I think it was your suggestion, Tara, to make it a half and not a full court. And that has been perfect because it is used, from the moment school gets out during school. I saw someone out there at 9 o'clock at night last night because it's finally cool enough to play, but that facility is very well used. So the process is fantastic. I'm personally, I'm sorry I can't make the 16th because my kids have sports that day. We'll be down in Elk Grove, but not only for Four Corners, but I just wanted to note Aubrey Husking as well. And I served with her for a little while on the Transportation Commission because, I don't think there's a city commission she hasn't served on at some point. So really happy for her and for us being able to have the city recognize her in that way. The other comment that I wanted to make was I was really happy to hear that you're already thinking about really playing up that connectivity with Saugstad and Royer. Growing up, Royer was my favorite park. Didn't even live in the city of Roseville. I lived just outside the city. But we would always come to what we would call Castle Park. So being able to see and bring my kids to the ribbon cutting on Saturday was awesome. The new playground is amazing. And, even as a kid, Saugstad was just kind of over there. There's really nothing to it. I played pickup game on the field once or twice out there, but nothing real. So I'm glad to see that you're already thinking that playing up that connectivity between this, Jill, I can't remember if it was you or if it was the mayor that said it was kind of the gem of the Roseville park system. I think it was you. And so to have Saugstad be more than just a forgotten appendage to that, but really a part of that connectivity from what could be Saugstad through Royer all the way to the downtown area of Roseville, I think is an enormous opportunity. So I'm thrilled to hear that that's kind of the way you guys are thinking too.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think you answered my questions on Crimson for the most part. The courts, what's the schedule for the next phase or phases or?
Next phase is we haven't identified timing on that yet. We just want to get through this one first. And,
I know the pickleball, the people are loud, but there's, the basketball courts are of interest too, so.
Basketball would be an easy one to put in. We've got some of the pads down, but basketball and tennis are the other courts out there. So we'd like to be able to finish all of them, frankly, because we do recognize there, as the city's growing, there's a diverse set of needs, just like, Saugstad, we're looking at a skate track, so we're trying to, there's so many variety of sports that are out there that we'd like to, if we were able to do it all today, we'd love to do it all today.
You can put me down for 2 yards of dirt.
Okay.
Okay. Tara, congratulations just on Saturday. My kids, they tore up that playground. They had so much fun. It was perfectly designed, so just another feather in your cap. And anybody else have any other comments?
So will Saugstad, will it remain its own park, or is it going to be incorporated into Royer?
Well, Douglas goes down the middle, so what we're going to do from a vision standpoint is to make sure that we've got some destination level type of play features or amenities so that people don't forget that Saugstad is part of downtown. So we won't be able to expand the park, over and connect physically, but I think from an activity level standpoint, we can.
I think that's going to be fantastic. I didn't even realize when we first moved here and my kids were playing sports that Saugstad was actually a park. I thought it was the overflow parking for Royer because that's what we all used it for, to go play baseball or softball. So I think it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, that's what you really see from the street.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a real strong presence from the street, so that would be wonderful to see.
Okay. Thank you, Tara.
Thank you.
And I guess opening public comment and closing public comment. And now we're almost done, guys. Jill, do you have any commissioner staff reports that you would like to present to the commission tonight?
I do have just a few things to comment on. As you can see, there's already a lot going on, but I wanted to let you know that we are opening 2 new adventure clubs this week with the opening of Westbrook Elementary School and Rex Fortune Elementary School. We're opening adventure clubs at both of those sites. So that program continues to grow as well. We've talked about the soccer complex and seeking naming rights sponsors for the complex, the fields, different amenities within that. And so we've developed a process where we are putting it out to the public that we are seeking these naming rights. And that will be out for 30 days to let people know and businesses know, organizations know if they're interested in those naming rights, that they can contact us. And then at the end of that 30-day period, we'll be communicating with all of those groups, talking about the benefits and the costs and so on. And hopefully we have multiple respondents that we can work with, but otherwise we'll be having those conversations then. Should we have no respondents in this 30-day period, that still allows us to open the door now, and then we can start approaching potentially interested parties. But we didn't want to start by picking our own and really providing that opportunity citywide. So you might see something on Facebook, on our website, just stating that we're now seeking naming rights sponsors for the soccer complex. So that's very exciting. I put a flyer, Christina put a flyer in front of each of you, just so you were aware of the Placer Protect event this week at Maidu Community Center. This is a senior-based event that's actually put on by Placer County, their district attorney's office, and Health and Human Services. But I thought it's a great event. It's very well attended by our community seniors, and I just thought you'd like to have some information about that. We mentioned Four Corners Park and Audrey Husking Park, so just a reminder that September 16th is the dedication for those parks. Sorry that we'll miss you, Jeff, but we'll have a picnic in your driveway since I understand it's right across the street. And speaking of picnics, thank you all so much for coming out Saturday to the ribbon cutting and the community picnic. Both were a huge success, and as hot as it was, there's so much shade at Royer Park, and everything concluded before the heat really set in, so that was just a lovely day. So thank you for that. And lastly, we will likely not have a meeting in September because it falls on Labor Day. If something should come up that we need to have a meeting, we'll set a special meeting date and communicate that with you. But pending that not happening, we'll next meet in October.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Before we wrap this all up, does anybody have any questions, comments, anything for Jill?
I was just going to say, I'm just looking at the participations and the participants, the key indicators list, everything's looking really, really good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jill. And opening public comment, closing public comment. And is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you all.
Thank
And
you.
we'll see you in 2 months.
Thank you all very much.